All right, the Vikings reportedly are getting calls about Danielle Hunter. Now, look, anytime one of the insiders reports that a team is getting calls about a player, I wonder whether the truth is the team is making calls about the player and or hoping to get calls about the player. Insiders have been used before that way, and it will happen again, where somebody from a team will plant this story, and it makes it easy when you've got a small army of reporters who are being paid by the NFL. Makes it easier for those teams to expect them to say, yes, I'll hold my nose and do it, even if I know there's a grift going on here. But Vikings getting calls about Danielle Hunter, I think it's more along the lines of Vikings would like to get calls about Danielle Hunter and or are getting ready to make calls about Danielle Hunter, because you operate from a position of strength if you're the one who receives the call versus being the one who makes the call. It's a very basic negotiating reality. But, just like with Zadarius Smith, I've always felt like in this offseason that Hunter is in this bucket of guys who may not have a future in Minnesota. Smith, Hunter, Dalvin Cook. So we'll see if he's still there. He set the record for the most sacks in NFL history before turning 25, but then he had that neck injury a couple of years ago. I think he'd had enough of Mike Zimmer as well. I think that was part of it, frankly. And, he's been off track the past few years. Although, look, he did have 10.5 sacks last year, quietly 10.5 sacks for one of the worst defenses in football. The question becomes, one more year with him in Brian Flores' defense, or do they move him to someone else? It's only $5.5 million this year. That seems wrong. That seems low.
That's where put this again, another one under the category of like, it just feels like Minnesota's not sure what they want to do. Like if they want to try to be a contender this year, or if they want to try to build for the future. I think it's similar to the Dalvin Cook situation. $5.5 million for the second most important position in football, the guy that gets after the quarterback, and he's kind of good at it, and your defense stunk last year? I don't know. And like we talked about, you arguably could be the fourth best team in the NFC, and if somebody gets hurt or whatever, and a quarterback gets hurt, I don't know, maybe you're all of a sudden the third or second best team in the NFC. That's where I don't know. I don't get it. Now maybe they like Wonham. I know he's a solid, good physical player, but yeah, it seems like the Vikings, your football team there, is a little stuck in like, wait, do we want to be real good this year, or do we want to, or are we just going to be okay good, and we'd rather plan for the future? And it's almost like they're not sure what the hell to do here in this situation.
He signed a solid contract early. Yeah. Not a great contract. Right. And I think that a few years in, he started to realize. He was at 14, and then Joey Bosa gets to 27. Yeah. Something's wrong with this picture. And that's when I think things began to fall off. And it is $4.9 million base salary, $500,000 in per-game roster bonuses, $100,000 offseason workout bonus, maxes out at 5.5. They gave him a big chunk of money last year as part of a restructuring bonus, so that helps explain why it's low this year. I don't know why you again, if the Vikings are going to keep him, there's no reason for the Vikings to leak that they're getting calls about Danielle Hunter.
No.
Maybe the agent is putting it out there because the thought would be if he gets traded, he gets a new contract now instead of waiting until after the season. But, maybe the Vikings are thinking, let's sell while we can.
Yeah.
In lieu of having him leave in free agency, let's get something now. The defense isn't going to be any worse than it was last year without him. And maybe he's still got an issue. Like he got enough money last year to hold it together and have 10.5 sacks. Now he sees he's only getting 5.5 this year. Maybe they're thinking this is just going to be a problem year. Let's go ahead and move him. Regardless, anytime anyone reports that a team is getting calls about a player, don't accept that at face value. There's something more going on there. Because if the team was committed to keeping him, it wouldn't be a story. They wouldn't feel compelled to tell anyone they're getting calls. They would just keep going about their lives because they want to keep the player and they don't want the relationship to be disrupted by the idea that he's available in trade.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little odd. And at the same time, I want to be like, I don't know. When you do all this stuff, does it really help out the trade? I almost feel like you're better off being quiet and acting like you really want the guy. I feel like when we start to go down this, road of like, oh, we're going to let teams know are available, everybody goes, well, they don't want them, so we'll just sit back and wait.
Right.
I mean, it never seems to really, come in or really turn into anything there. It's odd. Yeah. I mean, it's a team that was good last year. I know that their record was probably better than they actually were. But yeah, it seems like they're a little bit scared, planning for the future. I don't know what the exact deal is with Danielle Hunter. He did have the neck injury, right? We know that's concerning always to football teams. And I think there was a time there where we were like, wait, is this guy ever going to be back? Can he be full go and really effective again? But I think he proved that last year. So yeah, I'm a little surprised to hear about Danielle Hunter. And then you just signed a guy in Marcus Davenport who you give a 1-year deal to, who's got a little injury history too. And then that's where I go, I don't know. That's where it doesn't make sense to me as well. I don't know. I just don't know exactly what they're doing there in Minnesota.
Davenport's got an injury waiver in his contract tied to his shoulder, and there was a weird delay when he agreed to terms. And it was his contract and his injury waiver that got my spider sense tingling a week and a half ago with the whole Jimmy G thing. Let me get the contract and see what's in there. So Davenport, but for that, I might not have even thought, let's go get this contract and look at it. But he definitely has a pre-existing shoulder condition. He had surgery, and the Vikings have protection against that as they move forward on this 1-year deal. The Vikings are in a weird spot right now. We talked about this as it relates to Dalvin Cook. How much of it is self-awareness that they know they're not an elite team, so they're not trying to go all in, F them picks, Rams style? How much of it is surrendering prematurely? That's the balance here.
I think that's a fair way to say it.
Are they content to be just good enough, or do they have the uncanny ability to discern they're not going to be great enough? And, we've been advocating don't get rid of Dalvin Cook, because when you're in a division and a conference where it really is wide open, there's the Eagles, the 49ers, and everybody else. If either or both of those teams fall off at all, somebody from everybody else is going to have it fall together as the season goes along. They'll get better as the season goes along. They'll have breaks. They'll build momentum. And maybe the Vikings just think, we can't pull an inside straight 2 straight years. We're not going to have these close games that we just keep winning. It's impossible to think that's going to happen. I'd hate to see them surrender that territory and give up and concede we're going to be bad this year. But you know what? This is an indication. I had somebody tell me this years ago. One of the worst things a new regime can do is have a successful first year.
Yeah.
Because then that sets a bar for the next year. An unfair, unrealistic bar that they're not going to be able to meet. And then by year 3, you're starting to inch toward the hot seat if you don't have a year the third time around like the first year.
Yeah, no, I think that's real. It is. I guess where I go with the Vikings, I mean, you explained it right. I think that's exactly where it seems like it lies to me. I'm just, I guess I'm surprised like some of these decisions or things weren't made like in March or April, or like why didn't we get it going then with Danielle Hunter and all that before the draft, early free agency, whatever. I guess that's where I think it kind of shocks me too, that it's all come to a head here in the last month, and it just seems a little late to go, hey, wait, we don't know if we're going to be a contender now, so we'd like to start trimming the fat here and there and there and there. And that's where it just seems odd to me.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.